wants a pot of coffee? I just made coffee. You want a cup of coffee? Sure, there you go. Who wants coffee? Anybody else want coffee? Who wants coffee?
And now it's time for the man with the caffeine, the new tropics for the brain. It's Coffee with Mike. Hang in, hang tight, grab your cup, and let's get this thing started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Java Chat. This is Coffee with Mike, hanging out here with a new friend, a gentleman by the name of Cause Green. Cause, thanks for joining us this morning.
Mike, it's my pleasure to be with you.
Awesome.
Anytime I can have a little connection to Vegas right now, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Oh, you've been here before. You lived here for a while. You worked here for a while. You did a few things here.
I'm down in Henderson.
Yeah. Well, basically where I'm at, I'm on the south side of the valley too, so pretty daggone close. Well, where are you at now?
I'm actually in Utah. So this is where I was born and raised. Over the past, really, 13 years, I've been all over the country a lot.
Nice.
But about 2 years ago, I moved back here from, most recently, Chicago.
Ooh.
And after watching all of the latest events unfold in Chicago, it was a good time to get to Chicago.
Yeah. Another subject. We'll have to have you back for that one.
No. You know what? It's enough to just say it's a sad state of affairs, and
It is.
let's just focus on the good things.
It honestly is a sad state of affairs, and I do wish them all the best. I hope things work out for the best for all of them. So you're an award-winning entertainer, which is awesome. You're a certified professional coactive coach, which I will want to ask you about in a little while. You also have a podcast, correct?
I do.
What's it called?
The Cause Green Audio Experience.
Good Lord, love it. That is awesome. What do you guys talk about?
All things success, fulfillment, living an extraordinary life. Last week, actually will be released today, I had Brian Tracy on my show.
What?
I don't know if you've ever heard of Brian Tracy.
No, I've never heard of Brian Tracy.
So
Who hasn't heard of Brian Tracy? What the hell?
So Brian's podcast will be released today. So go to the Cause
That is
Green Audio
awesome.
Experience, and it's a great podcast. He and I just take a little stroll down memory lane from when we started working together about 30 years ago. I was 23 at the time, and I saw this little ad in Success Magazine about becoming one of his associates. And I didn't know what that entailed as a 22-year-old.
Right.
I soon learned it took 30 grand in an application.
Oh.
So my mom and I drove all over town and got little $1,500 and $2,500 signature loans, came up with the 30 grand and applied, and was selected back in 1989 as just one of 2 associates that year. So I feel pretty blessed. So I got to facilitate his stuff live. I mean, Brian was like 25 grand a day at the time, and I was a little cheaper, but I basically gave his script. I had to memorize all of his programs and give them verbatim, basically, and it was awesome.
That had to be, I was gonna say that had to be freaking awesome to learn from a man like Brian Tracy.
And then his office, he's still there in Solana Beach, but I would go down every quarter and spend about a week with him and just sit at his feet and be coached. And I have some of the best stories of just, I'd run into little obstacles and I'd pick up the phone and call him and say, "Hey Brian, I'm running into this obstacle." And he'd tell me a little story, and you can do this. And
that's one of the things I really like about him. He's like ready. He's ready with a story or some way to help that, and his encouragement is never. It's like you can't bring the man down, which I really love.
One thing I will say, we talked about it in the podcast, is we had dinner one night at his house, and there were a few of us associates, and so he had set up these round tables in the living room. And at the time, Christina was 9, Michael was 7, David was 5. So he had each of his children host a table of adults.
Wow.
And those children held the conversations and moved things along just like any adult would. So when he talks about raising happy, healthy, self-confident kids, it's not theory. Barbara did a great job.
Yeah, wow. I'd love to meet him now.
Yeah, so he's 76. And
he's still young in essence, if you think about it.
He's still doing good things. Has a couple little health issues, but just more so with his hips. But anyway, great guy, really set a foundation in my 20s. And then I developed my own material by the time I was 25 or so. And I started to migrate towards my own stuff. you know, because we all come to that conclusion. Yeah, I want to be the next Brian Tracy. And then you realize,
Sure.
no, you don't.
Yeah.
You want to be the best Cos Green that you can be.
Absolutely.
And that's really what the journey became, is how do I become the best version of me, and pull in all the experiences I had that make us all unique, and celebrate that uniqueness.
Absolutely. You had to have gone through some kind of transformation being with Brian Tracy. I can't imagine working so closely with a guy and not having some kind of transformation.
Well,
can you touch on that?
Well, yeah. How do you not learn all that material, and in most cases memorize it almost verbatim?
Yeah.
Like you could say, don't actually do this, by the way. This is just a metaphor. You could say, tape 3, side B of The Psychology of Achievement. Halfway through, it says this, go. And I would need to be able to, you know, have that material at the tip of my tongue.
That's crazy.
So how do you not do it over and over again? And especially like the new psychology of selling, how do you not teach that,
right,
and then internalize that, and then use it in your own life?
Sure.
Yes, that changes your being. And I even said this to Brian in the podcast. I said, I can still recite all the natural laws from the appendix of the Phoenix seminar on the psychology of achievement. And it's true.
Jeez.
And whenever you go through those moments, and I've had my moments, trust me, to where you tune that stuff out.
Right.
Well, we can talk about that if you want, but we can talk about how we tune out truth and what we know to be true. And we sometimes abandon the very truths that make us successful. And we go through our own stuff. But I think what I learned most from him was, yes, the material and internalizing it. How could it not change you? But then also just learning, sitting one-on-one in his office, or having dinner with he and his family in their home, or vacationing and speaking together in Maui for Christmas, you know, those kinds of things. And where I was at 22, 23, 24 years old, how does that not put a rudder in the water for the rest of your life?
Absolutely. I totally agree. That's kind of interesting that I do remember hearing that he came to Maui, and that's where I'm from. So if I had
where you're from?
Maui.
You're from Maui originally?
I am a Maui boy.
Here today, gone to Maui. I love Maui. So are you on the Hana side or the Kahanapali side?
I was on the Kahului side in Central, near the airport.
Near the airport. Yes. That was one of our favorite places to go. Every Christmas, he and his family just spent it in Maui.
Yeah, and probably on the Kahanapali side until Wailea started getting up. I was an entertainer for 15 years. So
what kind of entertainer?
Polynesian music. I played pretty much everything. So, but Polynesian music for the most part. I did a lot of luau's, you know, that kind of fun stuff.
They're in Lahaina, or?
So it depended. Most of the stable shows were over in Kahanapali and Wailea, but we would do shows anywhere. And then there were, you know, the after hours gigs where we go out and play jazz and rock and all that other fun stuff.
After hours.
Yeah, well, right. There's only one real after hours in Maui. It's Pioneer Inn, and that being in Las Vegas, both of us having been in Las Vegas, that's not after hours.
No, there are no clocks. See, you would never see this in Las Vegas, right?
Nope.
There would never be a clock on the wall.
Nope. Not in any place of gaming.
No.
Yeah, we can talk about that one too another day.
That's exciting. So we have that a little bit in common as far as entertainment. Know what the view from the front of the room looks like.
Oh yeah. Oh, and I've done speaking engagements. I've done some things. I've worked with a couple of other gurus. You know, you learn from whoever you can. I didn't have the list of mentors I would like, but I do have some friends, like Ben Gade III, who is the author of The Closers. Yeah, he's a good friend. Bernie Dorman, who was the creator of CEO Space. Unfortunately, he just recently passed away. He was another good mentor. He's the one that taught me what the concept of money was, that it's just an agreement. It's not anything that holds any power. It's the agreement that does.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's a powerful concept.
It is, honestly, because it a lot of people have a fear of that little piece of paper with Washington or Franklin or Grant. And it's like, why. It's just a piece of paper. It symbolizes an agreement. That's really all it is. The more agreements you make, the more you can get. It's really not that.
The deeper the agreement for the value
Yeah.
that you provide.
Yeah.
Sure. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it does. So we've all had those moments of transformation. I have a pretty decent circle now, and I'm always looking to learn from anybody. That's one of the reasons why I asked you on this, is because I knew you had, I didn't know you had Brian Tracy, but I knew you had a good story.
Well, you know what's interesting, and people kind of gravitate to that, because back when I started working with him, he was kind of known. You know, he had just had the Psychology of Achievement with Nightingale Conant and a few things. But we were talking about on the podcast, again, that'll be released today. He's releasing his 87th book.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So a lot of people didn't know him back then. So when I worked with him, and I would try to, you know, get into corporations and say, so I'm representing Brian Tracy. Who?
Yeah.
Where that was not an asset to me. And in fact, it was a tough sale. You know, I'm selling this Canadian who's now relocated in San Diego that, you know, has answers to grow your business. That's a tough sell sometimes.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
still selling the invisible.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I look back now and see the organizations that I worked with, you know, big media companies, big oil and gas companies, financial services. And what I learned being in those organizations, I remember I was working with a large media organization, and they said, well, start with this TV station.
Right.
And so what I did is I went in and I was doing the new psychology of selling. So I had to interview and spend an hour with every single one of their professional account executives. Okay.
Wow.
I'm 23 years old, and I'm talking to people who've been in the business for 23 years.
Oh, I've heard this one.
Yeah. I'm trying to find out what was their Achilles heel, or where was there an opportunity to help them. And the thing I learned then that has served me well is just ask good questions. Listen. They know what the answers are. They'll go through that process of discovery, and now you just need to help them circle back around to what they already know to be true.
Yeah.
And then just take action on it. You don't need to teach them something new. You know, as Epictetus once said, you know, you can't teach somebody anything new. You just kind of remind them of what they already know. And at that stage of their career, all I had to do is remind people truths. And
that they so conveniently like to hide from themselves, interestingly enough.
Well, because those inner saboteurs get in the way.
Exactly.
And that's why I'm on a mission to help people squelch the inner saboteurs, because there's so much we could accomplish. And there's so many things that I have done in my life. And whenever I've gotten off track, it's because I started to listen to a saboteur instead of the inner sage that knows what truth is.
You know, that goes into the mental health aspect, and that's something that I don't think I have enough of yet on this podcast, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs deal with those saboteurs on a daily basis. I know I have.
We all do. Everyone does.
And
you know, even if we just focused on two big ones that really are affecting the country today, kind of the ringleader saboteur is the judge.
Yeah.
Whether it's a judge like in your mind, it's Judge Judy, or it's the judge from My Cousin Vinny. Whatever you want to envision up there on the bench is your judge, who just tells you you're not good enough. You're not worthy. You're not pretty enough. You're not smart enough. You're not rich enough. You're just not enough. And that's why I'm releasing here soon my new book, I Am Enough, Squelching the Inner Saboteurs, because when I have worked with organizations at any level, and I've looked at somebody and just said, you're enough.
Yeah.
There's not one person who hasn't gotten misty-eyed.
Oh, sure.
Whether they're the CEO of a company, a religious leader, it doesn't matter. People just don't feel like they're enough, because the inner judge just screams at them sometimes so loud, and everybody in a greater or lesser degree deals with that.
It's
imposter syndrome.
That right there. So the reason why I laughed when you said that is because that very phrase sits on my board right here. I am enough, that I get to read here and in my bathroom every morning.
Really?
Yes, it is something that I learned not too long ago. But that.
Who did you learn that from? I'm curious. Was it the hypnotherapist from the UK?
No,
I
No,
forgot her name.
I think
He
think
talks about writing "I am enough" on your mirror, whether it be a woman with lipstick or if you know.
I've heard that version too. No, it wasn't her. I'm trying to remember, but I remembered seeing it and then stopping for a second and actually, taking a solid, honest look and realizing that saboteur, the judge, which loves to tell me that I'm not, is essentially full of shit, and I need to keep
Okay,
reminding
so
myself of that.
you broke through that wall, so you can use that word. Now I know where we're at, so that's good. It's a
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah.
No FCC listening, so that's
Oh,
good.
I don't give a shit about them. They can talk all the shit they want. I'm not on the radio station. That particular phrase really opened up a lot of stuff for me, and
How so?
because that judge has told me that I'm an imposter for many years before I really started getting my ish together, if you will. Look at me going right back to not saying shit. It's
Hey,
but
shift happens. It's a
yeah,
shift.
it is a shift,
When you have that shift,
and
it
it was a mental realization that, because I'd heard it for years from other experts too. The expert that's in the room is the one who's talking. Nobody else knows what you know. And they may bring up other points that might either enhance or challenge, but that doesn't mean you're not the expert in your subject. That just means that maybe you didn't research it enough and you need to be a human and correct yourself and keep going. Maybe you are the one in the room that knows everything about that subject. So be available, because you are enough. Don't be overbearing, be available. So if the question comes up that you can answer, you can offer. And if nobody wants it, whatever. It's not, I think too many people place mentally, they invest so much into the fact of what's going to happen if I say the wrong thing, not realizing that somebody in that room is going to pick up something that's necessary for their project, their life, their mentality. If you can't, to me, this is just my opinion, if I'm not there to offer up what information I know, the factual stuff, and I know it, I'm kind of being a thief. I'm not allowing somebody else to grow. I'm taking away from their ability to have that experience. So to me, it was like, okay, I am enough on whatever it is that I'm needed for. When that opportunity presents itself, I will be ready to offer up what it is what's needed. If I don't, I am enough that I will listen so that I can try to understand what it is that's being offered. The whole point is to me, the whole point of being enough is being a present human, one that's willing to listen, one that's willing to share, one that's willing to work, and one that's willing to be there. Even if that's all it is just being there. That's what it came up to me.
you are enough. And that's my message for the world is you are enough. You are perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. That was the part that was always the hardest for me. That last part. And that's okay.
So?
Because it wasn't okay in my head to just be enough. I had to be more. I had to do something else. I had to be better. I had to do. Yes, you need to improve. But you're not perfect. You're imperfectly perfect. And that's okay. Those last 3 words took me a long time to get used to. I'm serious.
Well, what's interesting when, we just said, and that's okay. I'm okay. What's interesting, and I only learned this really recently. I was interviewing Billy Mandarino. He's the author of the book, The Nowist.
Oh, I've got to get that now.
More books. It's absolutely wonderful. And I recommend him. He's a great podcast guest. And at the end of our interview, I showed him the cover of the book and he went, wow. He said, you understand the power of what you're saying there. And I was like, well, I'm starting to. and so the thing that I've gone back to, because as a kid, my favorite movie was The 10 Commandments. Still one of my favorites. Depends on what mood I'm in. If I'm in a good mood, then obviously it's The 10 Commandments. If I need a good laugh, then of course my favorite movie of all time is Tommy Boy. But
Nice.
As a kid growing up,
I'll agree with you on that. That's a good one.
Yeah, watching the Ten Commandments. And whether you're religious or not, it's still an amazing story. When Moses goes to the burning bush,
Are we talking
asks
Charlton
God,
Heston?
Yeah, Charlton
Yes.
Heston.
Yes.
That Moses goes to
Yes.
the burning
I
bush.
agree with you. Yeah.
And so actually, they didn't write this script. It actually is in the Bible. So he says, it wasn't.
It was a great script writer, that Bible writer. I tell you.
It was a great script writer. He just goes to the burning bush and he says, I don't know that they're going to believe me when I go into Egypt and say that I represent God. So what do I say? What is your name? And he says, I am that I am.
Yep.
Whatever follows after I am is the most powerful dialogue you can have with yourself.
Agreed.
And most people's internal self-talk is, I am not enough.
Yeah.
I am not good enough. I am not good enough. I am not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not tall enough.
Why do they do that to
I'm not athletic
themselves?
enough.
I mean, I did it too, but I still to this day, I don't understand. I still try to look back and go, when the hell did I start telling myself this? And who told me that I could do that?
Who started saying? Well, and what's interesting is we are not our saboteurs. So once we are able to surrender, and I don't mean surrender like, oh, tap out, uncle.
No,
surrender just means letting go.
Yeah.
So when we surrender from the unquiet mind, we take over our lives, because these saboteurs are always there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're always just chatter, whether it's the victim or any of the 10.
Absolutely.
And so I used to, when I started the book, the subtitle was Defeating the Saboteurs.
Nice.
But I've come to the conclusion, you cannot defeat your saboteurs. You can't be David and Goliath and take the big boy out. So I've changed the word, and I've really come up with a process to squelch the saboteurs. Now, I'm old enough.
As am I.
I'm older than you.
Yeah, but we both know what squelch. We know what squelch is.
But when I was a kid growing up, we had CBs.
Yep, we did too.
And you had the little squelch knob,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that just meant if you turned up the squelch or down the squelch, however you want to think about it, you can only pick up what was close to you, not that scratchy noise from
all the white
50
noise
miles away, right? Just the trucker on the road next to you.
Yep.
So we do have the ability, if step number 1 in squelching the saboteur is we've got to take personal responsibility, 100% responsibility, not 99, not 98, not 99.5, not your favorite radio station, 100% personal responsibility.
Right.
And if you do that so that you're not listening to the judge or you're not listening to the saboteur, because there's a time to listen to the judge, right? There's an appropriate time to get feedback from the judge.
Sure.
But we don't need to be listening to, let's say, the victim all day, every day. And I think that's the one we let in. And today's media is spending literally billions of dollars on you. Well, their sponsors are. And they're spending billions of dollars to put a message in your head. You're not good enough. But if you buy this product, you'll be prettier. And then you'll be enough.
Yeah.
Or if you do this, like this spokesperson, then you'll be thin enough. And then life will just magically have all the fulfillment and extraordinary benefits you've been looking for. So we've been conditioned to that we're just not enough until we buy stuff.
Yeah.
And then we come to that realization that it doesn't matter how much stuff we buy.
It's never going to change.
It's never going to come from the outside.
Nope.
The I am enough has to come from right here, because if it doesn't come from right here, we will never find it. So it's not in the external world.
Nope.
So going back to our opening conversation about that particular mentor again, the law of correspondence says that our outside world is simply a mirrored reflection of what's going on the inside.
Yep.
And we're chasing the outside. And the media is so good right now. Think about what the media is telling the entire world, especially us in America, what we're listening to right now.
Mm-hmm.
You're not enough. You're just not enough. You were born with the wrong skin color. You live in the wrong neighborhood. You didn't get the right education. You're just not enough.
Right.
And we're subscribing to that beep, and we don't need to.
I think
enough.
it's the constant.
End it today.
It's the constant bombardment that eventually gets somebody, because it's that, like you said, conditioning.
Well, and I have to be careful because I can't indict the media because for the last 20 years, I just retired or left media. Most recently, I worked for Comcast, NBC, Universal. So,
oh my, oh my,
oh my,
oh
lions
my,
and tigers and bears. Oh my! So
exactly.
I can actually talk about this with with a bit of credibility in what the media tries to do and what they're doing very successfully. And unless somebody hasn't already figured it out, it's just all about clickbait and ratings. And
That's all it's ever been about.
that's it.
You and I have seen
That's
this, and although I've only been alive since the 70s, when I went and dug in, this has been going on since the 60s.
It's been going
Possibly
on
even earlier
since
than that.
Gutenberg invented movable type.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean,
actually, you're
as far
right.
as
If you think about it,
even before that, tribal storytellers would still give you propaganda. They had a narrative they were trying to push. And in today's world, it's just so fragmented. Growing up, again, before you, my family had a remote, me. And it was, get up and change the channel, cause. And we had ABC, NBC, or CBS. And now you can turn on your Dish or DirecTV or
on your phone,
Xfinity or whatever.
On your phone.
And there's 1,000 channels of nothing.
You don't even have to be on your TV. You don't even, it's
okay.
You can
Well,
walk around with this junk
everywhere.
Yeah, it's
sight,
crazy.
sound, motion, and emotion.
Yeah, I mean,
because they put your powerful message on the screens people watch most,
and that's the one that's where they condition you. That's where they condition you. It's
how much screen time are people getting? How can you not? So you were talking about how well I was influenced by BT years ago, right? Because that's all I listened to 12 hours a day, learning the script.
Right.
People are watching this for 8-10 hours a day. How are you not being transformed by that? So we talk about your physical diet because we're talking about physical health. Well, you also want to talk a little bit about mental health. There's your biggest culprit to mental health.
All day. I agree. Here's a story for you that'll just continue. I hate to say the confirmation bias, but this will totally confirm what you just said. I was at a business networking deal, probably close to 120 people. Great place to go and network, meet people.
Not recently.
No, this was last year.
I wasn't gonna bust you.
Yeah, right. No, it was excuse me, it was back in 2018. But I vividly remember this happening. It was one of the local entertainment spots. It's kind of a restaurant / nightclub, bar, whatever. Walked in, about 120 people. Good night for networking. A lot of good people. Met a bunch of folks. Walked towards the back where the second bar was. I come up around the corner. There's a little table off to my right. 3 young ladies sitting there. They're part of this networking event too. Swear to on this, they're sitting like literally across from each other, and they're on their phones, smiling, laughing, touching the screens, everything else. And I took one look at that and I went, are you kidding me? Why did you guys show up here? This is not how you network. This is not the way to interact with other humans. What are you doing? Noting their age, or their general age, I was thinking, well, maybe this is just that generation, because it's being said they're the ones that have the technology. And I thought about that and I was like, no, something else is amiss here. They either don't understand the concept of networking, truly, or they honestly just came to hang out on their phone and continue to, like you said, take the conditioning. At that point,
well, you can't go out to dinner without seeing even whether, and you don't know, are they married or are they on their first date, but they're both just,
you can't tell.
Now, if they've been married for 10 years, okay, I get it. That's why they're not paying any attention to each other. But if they're on a first date, that's the last date.
That's the last date. That's the last date.
Crazy.
But
it's
still the same thing.
We pay attention to, we value. So if we're in a one-on-one situation and someone's paying attention to their phone, then that's more important than this.
Yeah.
That's why we've got to put them down. And
I think that's part of it too. Is that, again, because one of the things I do is I teach business etiquette. I haven't done it in a while, but I still do my best to live by the guidelines and principles that go with it. And being present is really what it describes. Funny enough, it actually goes according to that wonderful script that was written for the 10 Commandments. Mirrors the same principles. The idea of being present so that the other person understands that you do value them. You value their presence. You're there, you're listening. You're there talking. You're there actually interacting on subjects that they want to discuss. And they're doing the same in kind. If it's genuine, it honestly doesn't matter what subject you're talking about. You could be having I had a girlfriend once that I had like long debates about subjects that we didn't agree on. But I loved being with her. I really did. And she enjoyed being with me. She's like, you're the only guy I can have these debates with. I'm like, sounds like we're fighting sometimes though. She goes, it does. But I don't feel like we're fighting. I actually feel like we're talking with each other. We actually feel like we're actually having a conversation. I was like, okay, cool. Now, unfortunately, we didn't stay together, and for other reasons, youth and inexperience being mine. But I remember those conversations. I remember those times, and that's what it means to be present. To me, is if you can feel alive being with another human, and hearing and not reacting, I shouldn't say it that way, but interacting in a manner that's pleasing to both. Isn't that what we're supposed to be about? I mean, isn't that how humans promote humankind? Am I missing something?
Comes from, right?
Yeah. I would think that that's the way that humans can actually have a meaningful connection. Yeah, we have technology. I'm glad that we have things that make life easier. How dependent we've become upon it is a little concerning to me. But then again, both of us were of the older generation. The newer generations just they were born with it. They're using the heck out of it. My son dances circles around me on my stuff. I'll sit here on my computer and go, hey, I can't figure this out. I'll get this number. And again, he goes down the computer and he knocks it out. I'm like, you realize I don't look for that stuff on a daily basis. This is why you know it and I don't. It's like,
but are their relationships better? I
don't know. And that's one of the things that I keep wondering about. Are there relationships?
They're not deeper. I mean,
they can't be.
I've got friends that own businesses and people are quitting over text. They just don't show up anymore for work. And if they quit, they just send a text.
I had a conversation with a researcher. No. I agree with you. I had a conversation with a researcher out of San Francisco who we were discussing at the time. The whole millennial thing was a big uproar, and she was a speaker. God, I wish I could remember her name. She was a speaker here at a big conference, medical conference, and she says these millennials have gotten so bad. She said, I was standing in the same room with one of the other workers. She was maybe 5 or 6 feet away from me. She sends me a text on my phone saying she didn't want to do the project she was assigned. Right there. And she sends a text.
That's safe though.
Yeah.
Because
there's no risk.
There's risk, right? But it's just, we're just pulling the pin and lobbing the grenade.
And praying for rain. Yeah.
And let it blow up. But I don't need to interact. And
that's where the problem.
Therefore, you were never connected. Connected is this, right?
Yeah.
But if you're just lobbing the grenade and then they lob one back and all you're doing is playing ping pong through text, that's not a relationship.
Take a look at the rest of the country. How many grenades?
But you know what? I think it's dangerous to just say, well, the millennials, because I also know
this was that time. This was that time when everybody was being, it's old millennials.
I know some good millennials that have figured it out, but
I know some Gen Xers and Boomers that are just as bad as what was laid on the millennials. Yeah, they got a bad rap.
They're using that as a crutch. So
yeah, it's not.
It doesn't matter what your age is. It's your inability to put down the distraction.
Thank you. I agree, and they got saddled with a bad rap. Every generation seems to get something of a bad rap when they come out. Obviously,
what was it for the 70s children?
Lazy. We were lazy.
Same thing about kids today, right?
Exactly. So it's like, and I'm experiencing this even with my own.
Dang it! Everybody judges. That dang judge is front and center for everybody again.
I'm telling you, mine's is Joe Brown. because it's hilarious half the time. He's such a great judge. I love watching him. Not that Judge Judy isn't awesome. She's her eye rolls are wonderful.
But yeah, what's your judge though? Your judge has sentenced you to a life of misery because you've got to pay the price. And there was a point in my life about 11 years ago where my judge was judge, jury,
and executioner. Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, so was mine.
No, literally executioner. And luckily, the guy that wrote the 10 Commandments said, "No, wait a minute, cause I have a little higher purpose for you." Because at first I would never admit it, but now 11 years looking in the rearview mirror, I can admit that I did what I did, and I attempted suicide, not once, not twice, but 3 times in one day because I'd had enough. And my judge said, "It's got to end today." And so I didn't get killed by the train. I waited and I waited. There should have been a train. There were trains that came by there all day, every day. Why was it this day the train didn't come by? And my air conditioning had just gone out in my car. It's June 20 something. It's hotter than Haiti. And I was like, I've had enough. So I drove right to Walmart, got the dryer hose and duct tape, and this was it. And so I sealed up that bad boy car there. I mean, tighter than a snare drum. Nothing was going to get through. This was foolproof. And so that night I downed my stash of every conceivable prescription that had been given to me to try to help with the depression and anxiety I was going through, and choked it all down, turned the key, and jumped. A couple days later, I woke up in the ICU of a hospital. And once I was able to, get detox from all the crap and get my stuff together, then I thought, well, great, now I'll just get out. Well, no, they have other plans for you. And,
yeah, they do.
they come and escort you to the ambulance with a couple of security guards, and then they transport you somewhere else. And I was there for 9 days. And I would say that, some would say, wow, it had to have been a horrible experience. No, I really learned a lot about myself. And when I was there, the psychiatrist even said, "Who prescribed this? You should have never been taking this cocktail of drugs." Because I was just going through some real, it was just the perfect storm.
Yeah.
And so I had reached out to medical attention to try to get something to get through it. And what they gave me was worse. And the doctor said, when you watch a TV commercial, and at the very end, that voice comes in really fast, kind of soft, and says, by taking blankety blank, 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 it may cause suicidal thoughts or actions.
Duh.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, right.
One of those guys. And he said, "I'm surprised you didn't jump off a bridge 3 weeks ago." So once we got off that, understood what was going on, I was able to turn my life around. And within a year of that, I was speaking and training and doing so many amazing things. So I'm grateful I got through it. But I do have to tell you, can I tell you my pivot point?
Please. That's the that's the transformation point.
I get out of the hospital. I get out of the hospital on a Saturday, and we're at the drugstore picking up the right prescription. And I get a call on my phone that, and it was, "Your mother has fallen and she can't get up, a little life alert."
Yeah.
And so she goes into a coma. Didn't see her alive again, or wasn't able to talk to her. Anyway, she passes away a couple of days later. And so we do the funeral and everything. And when I got out of the hospital, I'd gone back into the garage, and, it was kind of a haunting experience to walk into the garage, and it's still all just taped up.
Yeah.
Nothing had been moved.
Oh, wow.
And so I took it all off, and then my mom passed away. We had the funeral. Well, my daughter's 15 at the time, learning how to drive, and I was not going to tell her what had happened. So,
right.
Just get on with your life. So that was a decent car for her to learn to drive in. So we go out to the garage, open the garage door. I get in there to start it, and the lights come on, but there's not even a noise. I mean, it doesn't click. It doesn't anything. And so Ben was 11 at the time. And so we push the car out of the garage.
Right.
And on the floor of the garage is this big pool of oil with these little shards of metal. Now, I'm not a mechanic. I can fix a computer. I can't fix a car. So I got to take that to mechanic. So we tow it over to the mechanic. The mechanic puts it up on a lift. And then he comes over and he says, what was going on? And I wasn't going to admit, well, I was trying to,
I was trying to end it all.
I was trying to off myself. So I was like, well, the
Jeez.
car was just idling in the garage. And he says, well, this is strange. Come look over here. So we go under the car, and he takes the flashlight, and he points
Right.
it up to the engine, and he says, that's where the piston came through the side of the engine.
The block cracked while you were. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
So had the car not died,
You would not be here.
I would have.
Yeah.
So was it 2 minutes before it was too late? Was it 30 seconds? Was it five minutes? I don't know. But all I know is whether it was divine intervention, which I would like to think, but because that engine died, therefore the carbon monoxide was not coming into the car.
Yeah. It was the drugs that just
Now,
took you
I
out.
had gotten enough that I had to be in the hospital,
Sure.
and then also to work through all the stuff I had taken. But when I was standing under that car and put two and two together to think that's why the car died, because I hadn't figured out. So when I woke up in ICU, I just felt worse, right?
Sure.
The guilt and shame of, geez, you suck at killing yourself. You didn't even do that right. Once I got through all that and had my own Patch Adams experience in the hospital and just really started to come back alive and get back to what I knew to be true.
Yeah.
I realized that, okay, you can take this experience and just use it for your own good and live an extraordinary life. Or you can accept the responsibility that I have given you to now be a messenger of light and to help others realize they are enough.
Yeah.
That there is a new day tomorrow. The sun will come up. Now, it's important, don't live in the past, you become senile. Don't live too far in the future, you're on someday aisle. You got to live in the now.
Yep.
But there are people out there that you will touch in a special way. So don't hide this light. So shine brightly, because someone out there needs to be guided by your light. And I took that as my mission. And it's taken some time, because at first I didn't want to say anything to anyone because I didn't want my children to know. And I still remember having those one-on-one discussions with my children to let them know what happened in that summer of 2009. And I thought they would run and hide, but they only loved me more. And we were able to talk about the shallow gene pool we come from. And it was so cathartic, and it's been helpful for the extended family as well to come together and say, you know what, my dad dealt with this, or my mom dealt with this, or we as kids, we deal with this. We got to talk about these things.
I swear this is the stuff that everybody's afraid of talking about it. But
no
these
one
are the
wants
moments.
to swim in the gene pool, and we have to.
Yeah, if we don't,
that's
we'll
part
never
of
know.
your enough is you're not alone.
Yeah, and I think too many people
Right,
feel
your
that.
cousins might be going through this. Your parents may have been going through this.
Oh yeah.
Whether you're related or not, we as a human species are going through this together. So we've got to overcome the stigma and the taboo of talking about this.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people say, well, I never know what to say. And here's the one little piece of advice. Just listen.
Yeah.
You don't need all the answers. Just
they're
listen.
not your answers to have.
Just
yeah, a lot of times again, be present. Half the time is just sitting there and just really being empathetic to what's going on there. I've had some of these conversations with people, because I went through it not long ago myself. Major depression. I didn't have the counseling. I had two friends. If it wasn't for those two friends, you and I wouldn't be sitting here either. Thankfully,
I'm glad you're here, Mike.
Yeah, so the first one got me straight on my relationship with Christ. He basically told me, your last 2 years have been a joke, and you've messed that relationship up. You need to change your focus, get it off of you, get it off of all the crap that you've been dealing with, and go fix that. That was one. The other one was a good friend who's my birthday buddy. We were born on the same day. And she says, I see where you're at. I was there. I don't want to see you there. So if you need to talk, you just call me. I will pick up the phone and I will listen. And she did. Numerous times. Numerous
Well, those
times.
were true friends, though, because most people run and hide because they just don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah. Or they think
It's
they're going to
not
be
that
shouldering the
they-
problem.
It's not that they can't be empathetic or they don't want to. They just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And most people just
awkward.
run and hide.
It's an awkward feeling. I mean, I remember trying to be present when I first started understanding what that meant, and just really getting scared when I started hearing some of the things that I heard. I mean, simple stories where people have had to battle thoughts of suicides and things like that. I'm like, what do I say to this person? You don't say shit. You sit and you listen and you let them talk. And if it gets to a sticking point, encourage them to keep going. Hey, how did that feel? I mean, that's kind of, did you really feel this way? Why? Do you know? Okay, keep going. And
But to your point, you listen, but then I think you may not necessarily give them advice, but you do need to ask a couple of questions.
Okay, so that brings up a good point. What are the good questions that can be asked that will help them come to that point that you came to, that I came to?
I didn't have all the answers. I don't think there's one pat answer, but recently I had Frank King. He's called the mental health comedian.
Nice.
A lot of great TED Talks. Be a great guest for you, Frank King.
I'm writing his name down.
Mental health comedian. He was on my show, and he actually has specific questions that you do ask.
Nice. I'll definitely want to talk to him.
It's interesting. In his introduction, you say, and here's a guy who's thought about killing himself more times than he can even count. Wow, okay, that's quite an intro.
Yeah, no kidding.
He's a great soul, but he does have a specific methodology, and a couple of the things you do want to ask people is, how serious they are about it.
Oh, definitely.
And the question that he's added to the end of his little dialogue is, what's your plan? And if they actually have a plan, they're a whole lot more serious.
Yeah.
So you do want to ask a couple of questions to frame it of where are they?
Yeah.
Because some people might be moments away. I know for me, I'm not sure what your experience was, Mike, and perhaps you'll share. I called the suicide hotline half an hour before I tried to kill myself.
Wow.
Before I was so disgusted, left the office and drove over to the train tracks. I called the suicide hotline, and I was so impatient. I finally just said to the kid, I'm like, stop reading the script.
Yeah.
I just wanted somebody to listen, to validate me that I was enough and that it was okay and that there was hope. And he was going through some script.
Yeah.
And I just thought, put the script down and just listen to him. And he wouldn't. He just kept going on with the script. So I just hung up and got in my car, and that started the worst day of my life, but also was just an incredible turning point.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know that I would have had a plan. I do know what I felt, and I did not call the suicide hotline. Maybe I should have. I ended up calling those two friends. They were my hotline.
that was better.
Yeah, they were my hotline.
It was, and I guess I didn't feel like I had that lifeline.
Yeah.
And I remember, how are we for time? Just one little story.
Oh, yeah, we got time.
So last year, it was actually on the 10th anniversary of, I don't even know what to call it, but that day, right?
Yeah.
I just, in my mind, I remember about that time of year, only because when I came to in the hospital and realized it was the 23rd of June, oh my gosh, my son's 11th birthday is tomorrow. And I always promised to be there to pick him up.
Sure.
And my ex-wife at the time gave me that look, hands on the hip, and said, well, you obviously weren't thinking about being there tomorrow for Ben's birthday. This was not his mother. It was my second wife. Said, well, you obviously weren't thinking about being at his birthday anyway, because if you were dead, you wouldn't have been there.
Oh.
So when I realized what I had done, that I was going to miss his birthday the next day, because I had never missed his birthday. I'd never missed an important day. Even when I lived in Vegas, I drove to Salt Lake every weekend when I had my kids. But anyway, so it's 10 years to the day. I'm sitting around a campfire just outside Manzini, Eswatini, which is a little country just to the east of South Africa.
Okay.
So a friend bought a plantation there and donated it to a charity, and we go and we feed the kids and try to help them all year with care points and everything. And we're sitting around the fire, and I'm sitting with kind of a who's who of there's one of the original 50 from Microsoft is sitting across from me. Another
Wow.
guy, he's got, his kids have a YouTube channel with 10 million subscribers.
Goodness.
My other friend, does very well. So I'm kind of with a who's who.
Hmm.
And our buddy's a successful attorney from Orange County and love the guy to death, very opinionated. And he goes off on just suicide. And how in the world could anyone attempt suicide? And what in the world would you be thinking if you actually had children at home? How could someone be that selfish to do that to their kids?
Wow.
And I just listened to them. They got in this discussion, anti-suicide or just not being empathetic. And I wasn't going to stand up and say, you're all wrong and all this. I just said, well, don't judge. You just don't know what people are going through.
Exactly.
Because actually, if somebody goes to that point, yes, in your mind, that's the most selfish thing that they can do. But you've got to realize they also have a frame of mind that they believe the world will be a better place without them.
Mm-hmm.
That they're doing the world the biggest favor of all by stepping back. And so that's why the message is so important is the world needs you. The world needs your uniqueness. The world needs you to be you.
Yep.
So celebrate what makes you you and shine. If it's being the best street sweeper, then as Martin Luther King said, be the best street sweeper. If it's being the best meat packer, be the best meat packer, best teacher, best truck driver. It doesn't matter. My favorite definition of success comes from Thomas Wolfe. He said, if a man has a talent and cannot use it, he has failed.
Yeah.
If he has a talent, uses part of it, then he has partly succeeded. But if a man has a talent and somehow learns to use the whole of it, he has gloriously succeeded and won a satisfaction and a triumph few men ever know.
Mm-hmm.
Success is not anything that we ever arrive at. It's nothing we possess. It's just knowing that we're doing a little bit better today than we did yesterday and a little better tomorrow than we are today. It's not the big house. It's not the fancy watch. It's not the designer clothes,
exactly.
the big car.
Yeah.
It's knowing you're enough and you're just doing your best, because we're all doing our best, because if you could do better, you would do better. If I could do better, I would do better. We're all doing our best. But again, back to the saboteurs, your judge is so strong in your head that you can't shut it off. So you judge everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're so unhappy. That's why we're fighting. That's why there's a civil war in America today, is because I'm going to shame you for not wearing a mask. I'm going to shame you for this. I'm going to shame you for that, because see, I've somehow arrived. No one has.
Yeah. It's one of the biggest things when I look at
judging.
When I look at, yeah, that's a big message right there. Stop judging. Oh my gosh.
Who are we to judge? One, don't judge yourself.
Yeah. Start there.
One.
Yeah. Start there.
And then turn it off and don't turn it outward.
I think the way I view humankind, speaking to your point on everybody has a purpose, there's a ton of books and a whole bunch of people that talk about purpose driven and all that. I look at humankind as a huge dynamic puzzle. If you're not there in the puzzle, it's not complete. Humankind is, like you said earlier, we interlink. We're social beings. We have to be doing our talent. We have to be sharing our gift. We have to be doing things that will enhance the rest of humankind. If somebody says your piece doesn't fit, maybe where they're at, your piece doesn't fit, but it fits somewhere. And our job is to go figure out where we are enough that we fit in the puzzle, because anybody knows.
We're just looking at the wrong puzzle.
We could be looking at the wrong puzzle or the wrong part
puzzle,
of it.
Right? They've got a 50-piece puzzle of the zoo,
and we've got 1,000
part
or
of this
10,000 pieces.
Something so intricate. We're just a little piece of the sky, but that little piece of blue sky, the sky doesn't exist without that little piece that we bring to the puzzle.
Yeah. And if people would just take a moment, realize that they have a purpose in that puzzle, I think it might be a little easier to tell that judge, hey, shut it. Because, just
turn the squelch down. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Just know I got a whole lot of for you.
But people will say, but that voice is always there. That voice is not you.
Mm-hmm.
and you choose to listen to it. And that's why I say we need to squelch it or surrender to that unquiet mind. That unquiet mind is always there.
Mm-hmm.
You do not have to be tuned into it. Turn
You
off
talk
the
you talk
remote.
about all of this in the book, right?
Yes,
When is that book coming out, or is it out already?
very shortly.
Okay.
It's
Please let me know so that we can make an announcement to our users and our listeners and everything, because that's obviously I want a copy too. So let me know so I can go get it.
You got it.
Um,
I had an exact release date. I'm working on the. I'm also an Audible narrator.
yes.
So
I love Audible, dude.
So I'm doing Audible right, and so when I take you on this journey, and there's sound effects, and there's
that's cool, dude.
Kind of the old theater of the mind, old time radio.
I love those
chapters.
I miss that. Nobody does that anymore. Those are some cool times, dude.
That's why so when I do things on video, it's Cause TV, and then audio, it's it's an audio experience. It should be, it's a listening experience.
It should be though. You can't, as much as I love Audible, I do miss the days when we used, because there were still, when we were young, there were still those radio shows that had some of that. Wasn't as much as in the 40s and 30s. I bet I should probably go hunt them down. But those were fun.
They're there on Audible, and I've got a couple of them that every once in a while I'll pull one out, and it's the Green Hornet. And they have them all now. They have all the old 50s radio programs.
Yeah, those were cool.
To just go into the dark or right before you go to sleep or something. And because I remember as a kid listening to those, even though we had television, right? Believe it or not, folks, we even had color TV when I was a kid. But I remember just, being in bed and turning on this AM, shows you how old, this AM radio station. And that's what they had at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So my parents thought I was asleep. I had that old little transistor radio, underneath
I remember
the pillow
those.
and with a little earpiece, and it just, the theater of the mind just came alive.
That's
and now think about now, it's just so passive. If I don't see something with tons of CGI and 5-second jump cuts, I'm just not entertained. Go into a great audio program and experience that. It's so awesome.
Man, and I think this was in the 80s, because technology started coming out, and then in the 90s, of course, computers started coming out and everything. There was a big push to get kids back to reading, like reading. You probably remember this title. A bunch of my listeners probably won't. The Never-Ending Story.
That became the movie.
And the movie, sorry to say, as wonderful as it was, wasn't the same as the book, because the book took you to places in your own mind that had you thinking like, whoa, what did they do? How did they do that? I mean, if you were really reading, and I wasn't the most avid reader, but if you were really reading, your mind would open up some pictures in your head, and you'd just be like, what would that be like to actually have been there, to really see this? Like, what if that were real? When the human imagination, from what I've learned, and I'm no expert in this, guys, but from what I've learned and from what I've played with, when you have a combination of words that can actually create images, sounds, I'm a musician, I played music, sounds that can actually incite emotion along with that I will say the movie did pretty good. But when you have those two elements available to you and your mind is allowed to create the visuals, if you don't get an experience that tells you how powerful your mind is, I would be super shocked. Every human's brain can come up with some really cool stuff if you feed it the right information.
Well, think about how Alfred Hitchcock made movies.
Oh my gosh.
He was so brilliant, because even when he made movies, but what did he do? He got to a place, he didn't need to show you what they show you nowadays. They don't need to even show you. All he would do is fade to black, pause.
Yep.
That way the viewer, they conjured up something worse than he could ever produce on screen.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So if we have that ability to create those types of pictures, when we squelch the saboteurs, particularly the judge and the victim, and we start to preview coming attractions rather than reliving the tragedy, and start to visualize what we really want to be, have, and do, with an emphasis on be, not just
Be.
have and do.
Thank you.
And we see that and see it not, setting goals. I believe in all that. But as Billy Mandarino talks about in The Nowist, you see it from there. Go there. Go to the end of the movie. Be present in that ending and see what it looks like and be there. Then just go back and create it. We have the capacity to do that.
Yeah. But
we have our imaginations to create everything. Disneyland was just a vision that Walt Disney saw, turning an old swampland
into a thriving, bustling, happy place. Yep.
And people, what? You're going to do what with this land over here? You're crazy. But he had it in his mind first.
Yep.
Roger Bannister, when he broke the 4-minute mile, said this was not a triumph over anything physical.
It's all mental.
It was a psychological barrier. When he broke the 4-minute mile, it wasn't too many years before high school kids were doing it.
Yep.
Once he broke through the 4-minute mile in his head, the body followed. And we've just got to think differently. And I'm afraid that's why we're going through the Civil War we are right now. We're just not thinking very well. We don't have right thinking.
Or thinking at all. I think I was
going to give you a little credit, but yes, or thinking at all.
I do believe that if people would take the time to actually, what you're talking about in some cases, visualization. Once a human breaks a barrier, any human can break a barrier. There are those who are far enough along that will actually look at that and go, well, shit, if he can do it, so can I. I just gotta figure out how to do it. Their problem is going to be realizing that it was a mental barrier and they have the same barrier to break. The ones that understand that are the first ones to follow. When they're young enough like that, and the kids
break through that mental barrier, it becomes a habit.
And that's right? The other part.
It's a template. Nothing succeeds like success. And so when you overcome something, like my biggest fear is fear of heights. So how did I deal with the fear of heights? Well, when I lost all my weight, I rode the 500 miles in 5 days on a bike. How did I celebrate? I went and jumped out of an airplane from 15,500 feet.
Nice.
And when I landed, I realized that fear was just between my ears.
Yep.
And I knew that anyway. Fear is just fantasized experience appearing real. Well, then the second biggest fear I had was open water. So I have a good friend who taught me how to scuba dive. And it wasn't just, we learned in his pool and then went to a place to certify. But then we went off the coast of Hawaii, actually off the coast of Lanai.
Oh, boy.
So you know that well. And
yeah, the shelf. Did you guys do the shelf, or did you guys do?
We do things that you should not do, especially for a guy who had no huge dives like that. I still remember we're sitting in his boat. Well, we're standing in his boat, getting all geared up for my first shakedown dive. And he just looks at me, he says, "Do you trust me?" And you'd have to know this guy. And so it's just his style. And I love the guy. And he just says, "Do you trust me?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "With your life?" And I said, "Yes." And 2 dives into it, we were doing things that people who have, I always get it wrong, that have dived or dove,
whichever it is.
We were doing some pretty hairy stuff. I mean, I remember then my third biggest fear is like claustrophobia in the dark. So what does he do? He takes me under the rocks. Like we're, 50 feet below.
Yeah.
But then we go into this, I mean, we're swimming up to it and I'm like, oh, here's a little rock formation. All of a sudden we're in it and we turn on our flashlights and all I see is the back of his fins for 5 minutes.
Wow.
There's no way out except forward. You can't go back, can't go up. You are in a little tube. And as I came out of that, I thought, there's nothing you can't do. You've got to just stop all this noise between your ears because you just went and did some pretty gnarly stuff.
Yeah.
Once you just slow down and get the judge and all the saboteurs, squelch them and turn them off and just, to your point, be in that moment. It was one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever experienced. And now I've had 50 some odd dives since then. But there's so much that we don't do because of fear or what we think people are going to, what they may judge us as.
Yeah.
Stop. and live an extraordinary life. It's possible. And you can do extraordinary things without being rich. Just experience life in the moment. To what you were saying, be present and just be. We're so busy doing and having. The key is to just stop and be enough, because you are.
It really is. It kicks me that a lot of people don't realize how strong that verb to be actually is. It's like they never watched Hamlet.
To be
or not to be.
Or not to be. And I would say to you, most people are not to be.
That's sad.
They never embrace who they are.
Yeah.
They want to be someone else. Celebrate just being who you are. God made you unique and special.
Mm-hmm.
You've been through unique experiences. You've had different people touch your life in a different way. You are who you are in such a magnificent way.
Mm-hmm.
Embrace that. Celebrate that. Let that shine.
Mm-hmm. I think more people need to realize that was the whole point of why he made us all different. If he made us all the same.
I had a Cub Scout advisor that said, cause if we all had the same taste, we'd all be chasing the same girl. So we're all different for a reason.
And she'd probably be scared out of her wits.
And she's glad.
Yes, exactly.
Got to be different.
Oh my gosh, I have to remember that one.
Unique pieces of the puzzle. I only learned 2 things in the Cub Scouts is we can't all have the same taste. We'll all be chasing the same girl, and don't spit in the wind. I think that's all I learned in Cub Scouts. But they were 2 important lessons.
Yeah, no, ours wasn't spitting; it was something else. But we'll leave that one alone. But same idea, and
ours
never
was a church-based Cub Scout.
Yeah, of course. Well, in our case, it's just don't do it in the fan. It's even worse, because that means you chose to do it. All right, so where can people find you?
So go to, it makes it really simple.
Yeah,
Cause C-O-Z.
Yep.
Green like the color.com. Causegreen.com.
And is your book going to be released there?
Yes. Well, and if just stay tuned there, we'll let you know. And then the videos are at cause.tv. So .tv is like .com. So just cause.tv.
Mm-hmm.
And you can watch that interview I just did with Brian Tracy. And some
I definitely want to
folks.
see that. Yeah, I want to see that for sure. That's cool.
And we keep adding things there every week. And then on the podcast, it's the Cause Green audio experience available on Apple and wherever you get your podcasts.
Exactly. That's awesome.
Except Podbean. I don't always remember to upload it to Podbean.
Whoops. Yeah, I'm actually looking at moving this from Anchor over to Libsyn for
I'm on
hosting
Libsyn.
Yeah, I'm probably going to move there too. I'm going to refer you to Sean Douglas. He has the Life Transformation podcast. If you haven't been on that, you need to. This particular story needs to be on that podcast. He will love you.
Which particular story?
Your story.
We're talking about?
Yeah, your story.
Well, put in a word,
Oh, I'll make the referral.
I graciously accept referrals every day. So
He's
if
one
anyone
of the coolest
listening
dudes.
knows a podcast I should be on, or
Absolutely.
I do virtuals. So because of the pandemic right now, I'm obviously not on stage as a key speaker or workshop leader. But if your group would like to have a virtual keynote or a virtual session, then just email me, cause@causegreen.com.
Sweet. Very simple, very easy. Cause we've done very well on time. Thank you very much.
I believe in the Joe Rogan model. You just talk, and whatever time it is.
I'm the same way.
It's not network TV. You don't need to end at exactly top of the hour.
Exactly.
To go to your 3-minute commercial break.
Yeah,
so
we don't. I don't cater to big companies. In fact, they would probably not like me. A different story. But yeah, thank you for coming and hanging out, having a cup of coffee with me.
Hey, good hanging with you, Mike, and we'll do this again.
I was about to say, can we please do this again? Because I don't think we've dug half as deep as either one of us can, and I think there's a lot more to talk about, especially when it comes to
your
mental
listeners
health.
will decide whether I'm back or not, so I'll let you know.
So far, I've already gotten a few people saying some of my guests do need to come back, and they kind of fall in line with this kind of story, what's been going on. So yeah, you'll be back.
I'll be back. I look forward to it.
Awesome. All right, guys. So you know how we love to end this. Thank you for listening. You know we love you guys. Every one of you that listens, every one of you that downloads, subscribes. let me see if I can do this right. Over there, if you're watching on YouTube, I always remember it's just flipped. Yeah. Subscribe.
Don't forget to hit the bell so you're notified when the next.
Oh, that's right. There's a bell now. That's correct.
Yeah, don't hit the bell.
Hit the bell. Hit the subscribe button. Make sure you share it. Yeah, often. And if you're listening on any of your podcast platforms, feel free to subscribe there or download it if you will. If you ever want to see any of the other episodes, make sure you stop off at javapodcast.com, javachatpodcast.com, forgive me, and take a listen. I mean, I have wonderful people like this all the time. These are the people that I look for because they have the insights. Name of the book again is I Am Enough, correct?
I Am Enough. Squelch the Inner Saboteurs, coming soon.
Make sure you guys keep an eye on it. I will probably announce it on one of the podcasts. I hope I can, just when it comes out, because I'm definitely ordering one. Stay healthy, stay up, stay safe, but live. Please don't go hide in a hole. There's no place for you there. You need to be out here with the rest of us. From both of us to all of you, love you guys. Ciao for now.
For more information on Java Chat, visit www.javachatpodcast.com. You've been listening to Coffee with Mike on Java Chat. Tune in weekly to this podcast for the next episode. You can also download or subscribe today on your favorite podcast platform. A production of Oasis Media Group, LLC. Located in Las Vegas, Nevada. Copyright 2019. All rights reserved.